Good morning, Callum. How are you?
Hi, I'm not too bad.
Great. It's great to be here at our new podcast studio with Jason Kirby. And yeah, I thought I'd get underway with you. So obviously you're only 25 minutes away from us. So yeah, how did you get on yesterday with the MX Nationals?
Yeah, so we started the weekend off, obviously at Oxford Motor Park. And it's a lovely looking track, certainly one of the nicest looking in the UK.
Yeah.
But we started the weekend off. It took me a little bit to adjust to the track. Obviously, you only get 12 minutes of time practice, which is like 5-6 laps to try and learn the track and put a fast time in. So, it's never easy. But I was 9th in the Expert MX2.
Brilliant.
In qualifying.
Yeah.
Which, I certainly would have liked to be a little bit further up, but I was happy with it. And then by the time race 1 came, unfortunately it rained a lot.
Yeah.
So the track was very wet. All the lines were different, but it just finished raining. So all the wet dirt had then started to dry out and it became really sticky.
Yeah.
So instantly from the first gate drop, just all the mud onto the goggles, couldn't see a thing.
Oh my God.
And I unfortunately got filled in. So I ended up finishing that race in about 9th.
Yeah.
I made quite a few passes in the middle part of the race, but I think mostly it was on the 450s, so it wasn't for position.
Yeah.
Race 2, by then the track had dried out. It was lovely. I had a really good race. I think I was sort of gated around 8th, pulled up to 6th, which I was very, very happy with. And then Sunday morning, the first race was a bit unfortunate for me. My start wasn't too bad. I was doing quite well, and then I came together with another rider.
Oh.
And unfortunately, as we sort of came together, they sort of hit me, and it caused a bit of damage. But I didn't realise that when I was riding, so I kept pushing on, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Pulling back to about 9th.
Yeah.
So that was equal to quali, so I couldn't complain with that.
No.
And then the last race of the day was nice and consistent for me. I think I finished up 7th overall. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah, I was happy with that.
And your suspension's now away, waiting to get done by Carl Anderson?
Yeah, so Carl helps me out quite a lot. So we were able to give him the suspension on the day. So hopefully he'll be able to get it back to us nice and quickly, because obviously it's, we've got 2 bikes, but a bike without forks isn't useful to anyone. So thankfully he's gonna help us out and get it back to us as soon as possible.
Okay, and obviously you're doing other championships. You're dipping your toe into which other ones are you doing?
So so far I've done every round of the Revo OCU British. It's my rookie year in the MX2 class. So just seeing how I get on with it. We've had some highs and lows results-wise. Some of the highs being certainly Ling. I think in the first race I was 17th, so I scored 4 expert pro points. Yeah. 4 pro points, which...
How does that work with the pro points? Is that, does that go on to something or...?
So, top 20 get points. Obviously it can be up to 40 riders. Normally there's only about 30, but there's still 30 of the best riders in the UK. Yeah. If you finish in that top 20, you get points. I'm not sure what they amount to, apart from obviously the championship at the end of the year, but it's certainly a cool thing to be able to say that you scored some points at the top level. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if there's anything else to getting points, but for me,
it's a massive statement to say in your rookie year to get 4 points at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think we've got one more round to go, which is again back at Oxford Motor Park.
Yeah.
So, never know. And then we got obviously the rest of the MX Nationals. And obviously you're doing a bit of the both on the Bridgestones, is that right?
Yeah. I've done a couple of rounds of the Bridgestones. I'm not focused on that championship.
No.
But, there's certainly for some of the tracks, it was worth going and just riding the tracks, getting some extra gate drops.
And then last year you came second in the Bridgestones for the youth, is that right?
Yeah, so I was racing the youth class, and in the end I finished second, but I was 18 points out of the lead, and unfortunately I had a DNF, which for them races I believe a win is about 45 points, because everyone gets points.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I would have done that extra race, it would have certainly made a difference in the championship. But you know, it's part of motocross. We always have issues.
I mean, you know, every day is an issue. You know, and that is motocross, and it's one expensive hobby. You know, at the end of the day, we all do it for fun and enjoy ourselves. So obviously, you are going back on your career. Well, your career's not even going. You know, it's been there. You know, so but you won the Eastern Centre in 2021, is that right?
Yeah, so in 2021 it was my first go at adult racing.
Yeah.
And the Eastern Centre's always been one that I've been interested in ever since I was young, because before I was even racing, my dad was racing in the Eastern Centre Championship.
Yeah.
And at the age of 40, I think he managed to get his expert points.
Bloody hell.
So when he was, you know, sort of finishing up his racing and still just going out for a bit of fun, he was racing against people like Jake Nichols, who was just sort of coming up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's sort of crazy to think that whilst he was just racing on a Sunday, having a bit of fun, he was racing against people that later went on to do amazing stuff in the British. But that's what sort of got me into the Eastern Centre.
Yeah.
And ever since I started racing in there, everyone's been so polite and friendly.
Yeah.
A lot of people know my dad.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have people coming up to me all the time, just talking to me about my dad, saying how cool it is to see me sort of following him.
Yeah.
And racing in the Eastern Centre, and I was really, really happy to be able to get all my expert points in that first year.
Yeah.
And then the championship was sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So I was very happy with that.
That's brilliant. And obviously then you obviously won the Skegness beach race, is that right?
Yeah. So I always like to do the Skegness beach race. The thing that I'd compare it to is something like Dunkirk or Lommel, just doing an endurance race. So you just log the laps, and I find it really fun, really enjoyable. But yeah, in 2021 I had a bit of luck. You need a lot of luck to do well in something like that, because there's so many variables that could go wrong. And luckily the bike worked really well. I'm normally quite easy on the clutch anyway, so the bike didn't overheat at all. And I think towards the end I just kept going, whereas some of the other people dropped off a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I think I finished 2 laps ahead of the second junior.
Okay.
And about 17th out of everyone.
Yeah, well.
Because 50 of the riders are elites.
Yeah.
So I was over the moon with that when I found out, because obviously you don't really know where you are until you finish.
No.
And when I was told how well I did, I was over the moon.
God, that's brilliant. And obviously, you know, it's a big family issue with you. Like, I mean, you've got Mitch, your brother. He does the Eastern Centre as well. Your dad's obviously, and your mum is always there as well when she can be. So it's a great little family. Family. What am I trying to think? Family.
It's a good hobby for all of us.
Yeah, good hobby. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. So yeah, but apart from that, that's great. So, what age did you actually start motocrossing?
So I started off on a little balance bike as soon as I could walk. As soon as I could sort of crawl, I wanted to be on a balance bike. I always loved playing with the plastic toy bikes.
Okay.
When my dad would be out racing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I could sort of, you know, take control of everything and knew what I was doing, so at about the age of 3, I think, I was straight onto a PW 50.
Yeah.
I was offered to ride a quad and I never wanted to. I always wanted to be on 2 wheels. So, but yeah, since then I started off my career just going around in circles.
Was that in your garden or?
I think we normally used to find fields or go to Washbrook, places like that. Eventually, my brother was racing at the time, so he was on a 50. And and I think he was quite good when he was younger. He certainly enjoyed the sport a lot. And watching him go out and race, I'd always want to do it too, but I was never quite at the point where I really knew what was going on. I was just going out to ride around to places like Chatteris.
Yep.
So my first few races, I was just riding around aimlessly at the back, but I loved it so much that from there on I never really stopped.
Okay.
And once I'd sort of got my bearings a little bit, I then also on the auto started racing things like the GT Cup.
Okay.
Which I always did quite well in, but when I was coming up, there was Charlie Heyman, who obviously now has gone on to do some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
And Alfie Jones, another top rider in the British.
Yeah. Is that 731? Is that Alfie? Yeah.
And we were always battling with some other riders. Harvey Cashmore.
Yeah.
I've raced him my whole life, as well as there's Freddie Wyard. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
He doesn't do as much anymore, but certainly back in the golden days, it was us sort of five all racing each other. I think I normally had seconds or thirds. Charlie at the time was pretty unbeatable through everything. Alfie, I always had some good battles with him.
Yeah.
And we went on to do things like the MX Master Kids.
Yeah.
Where I believe I finished 8th in the gold class.
Okay.
Which is sort of my highest ever.
Yeah.
Because you could class that as a bit of a world scale.
Yeah.
I'm always going to say it's my highest ever result.
Yeah.
And then onto the 65s, I sort of struggled a little bit, trying to get used to the gears, and obviously going from just holding the throttle open the whole time to then having to change gears as well as do everything else. I took a little while to get used to it, but I soon sort of picked it up.
Yeah.
And then had a good couple of years on the small wheel, racing things like East Anglia, which I used to love.
Yeah, a lot of people that did that club. That was one of the best clubs around here at the time.
By far.
And obviously the tracks you went to, was it Mildenhall, Chatteris, Chatteris, Washbrook, and the one near Mildenhall?
Yeah, so we did a lot of local tracks, but we also went a little bit further out. We did things like, there was a really, really cool track called Roxton.
Okay.
It was sort of in a bit of a valley. It had some big jumps, all sort of flowing. Lovely, lovely track. Unfortunately, it's shut down now.
Yeah.
We also did, I can't remember, I think it was Banbury.
Oh, okay. Quite a way then, Oxfordshire.
Yeah, it was sort of a couple of hours drive, but it was by far one of the best tracks growing up.
Okay.
We also did a bit round Meeple. I think we used to have a winter series at Meeple. That then eventually I think it moved to Chatteris.
Okay.
But yeah, that club was like a national, but at a level where everyone enjoyed it. It didn't have the pressure of a national, but had the riders of a national.
Okay, yeah.
So that was awesome, and I can't remember exactly what results I got, but I know that I had a lot of seconds, a lot of firsts. I was always sort of at the sharp end.
Okay. And then Peterborough, did you do much with Peterborough Junior Club?
Yeah, so that was the first club I ever raced with.
Okay.
And my dad used to race there a lot.
Yeah.
So again, I sort of got drawn into it. My brother used to race it a lot. And sort of since then, we just used to go there. Like I said at first, I was just sort of riding around, and then I started getting better results. I started winning races, and I always like to go back and do a couple of races at that club.
Can you remember your ever first race win, where it was?
I can't, unfortunately. At that age, things happen so quick.
Okay.
And I mean, sort of remembering things has never been my strong spot, but I certainly know that I had some pretty awesome races, certainly on the 85 small wheels.
Okay.
And on the 65, where winning races at East Anglia or Kensworth was massive.
Yeah.
It used to be like a crowning achievement almost before sort of nationals took over. And I had some awesome races, and it was always fun knowing that you'd be at the sharp end, knowing that you could win them races, and it always sort of pushed you on that little bit more.
Okay, yeah.
Until obviously I was ready to do some nationals, and then I had on the big wheels, I had some good results. A couple of thirds, seconds in things like the Bridgestones.
Yeah.
I had a couple of good races in the MX Nationals. And then the British, when I was in the youth class, I had some thirds and stuff. So I've always sort of been trying to go up gradually.
Yeah.
And so far, luckily, I've been able to, results-wise, so I'm happy with that.
And this is obviously your rookie year on the 250 in expert of the MX Nationals. And is it the pro class of the MX2 and the British?
Yeah, so this is I guess you really could call it the top class in the UK. Obviously, it's split between MX1 and MX2.
Yeah.
But I think the riders are normally pretty similar.
Yeah.
In terms of skill. If you look at people like Conrad Muse, he went from winning everything on a 250 to now he's gone up to winning everything on a 450.
Yeah.
Which just shows it's the riders skill-wise are just as good in both classes. It just means that they've got a little bit more power when they step onto a 450, which is, it always helps.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, and obviously, you do during the week your training, or what do you do during the week to keep yourself going?
So at the moment, in the past, I've been with people like Justin Morris. He's helped me out massively. Certainly through the whole off season, we've done a lot. And I'm sort of really appreciative for the amount he's helped me. And I still do the odd bit with him because I think it's really, really important to to be doing stuff like that. To keep you sharp, make sure you're not making mistakes, and making sure you're not getting into bad habits.
Yeah.
And then midweek I do a lot of training with Callum Mitchell.
Oh right, yeah, Callum,
another pro.
Yeah.
Who's doing really, really well at the minute.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So we train in Kings Lynn.
All right.
So there's some early mornings for me to try and get there.
Is it something called the Donk, or is that where you train, or?
So we've got a gym called Motivate.
Okay.
A lovely gym, really well ran.
Yeah.
So we do our training there Tuesday and Thursday. And then we normally go riding a lot of local tracks. We try not to go too far. Sort of the furthest we really go is up to Doncaster, but we try and sort it out so it's not every weekend, every week, because drives like that are mentally draining before you start riding.
Yeah, I understand that.
Normally I find I'll ride best when we're riding somewhere local where we can just turn up nice and fresh and just get the motos in. But yeah, like you said, there's a track in Kings Lynn called the Donk Track, which you can go on and off as you like. Normally it's quite quiet. I think the most people I've ever seen there is me, Cal, and one other person. So we're pretty fortunate to have the track more or less to ourselves to do whatever we want to do, whether it's work on a couple of corners or just put in some sprint laps. And we also do some motos every now and then.
Okay. Just
to try and keep ready for the.
And do you have a part-time job or a full-time job to keep you going?
So yeah, I do a little bit of work for my dad. Anglia Profiles. I don't know if it's Yeah, there is. It's on the jumpers.
Yep.
He's got his own business. So I'm sort of grateful to be able to, whenever I sort of want to do a day's work or sort of need the money, I can just sort of ask him, and he's always got something for me to do, which is nice. It really helps out. And then for the most part, what I do is I do motocross training for Chris Bastick.
Okay.
Working for Train to Gain.
All right.
And sort of when I was younger, I used to do a lot of training with Chris. Like I said, I struggled a little bit on the 65. And to get me used to riding with the clutch and to help me out, I used to do a lot of training with Chris, and I'm incredibly grateful for everything that he's done for me, because we certainly spent a lot of time together just working on the basics, working on just trying to get the technique right. And I think without that, I wouldn't be where I am at the moment. Because like I said, we went through all the basics of riding a geared bike, and then we went on to trying to race the geared bike, and he helped me out a lot. And he was, he was always available, always there, came to my races and everything. And then during lockdown, when obviously there was nothing on. Schools were shut. I asked him, originally I was just asking for. He's got a second business which is it's tryout days.
Okay.
So for people that's never rode a bike before, you can go and he's got some Kawasaki's. You can go and ride them around a sort of tamed down track, perfect for beginners. And I was just asking if he'd got a spare slot there, so I could just earn some money.
Yeah.
And he sort of reckoned that I was overqualified for something like that, and sort of suggested that I did motocross teaching.
Okay.
And since then, I always like to do a couple of days. Obviously, I'm quite busy with motocross and training and all sorts, but I always like to do a couple of days a week if I can.
Okay, and obviously this is your first year, but instead of being in a family unit, you're now with a team. How does that differ?
So, pressure-wise, like you always say, there's no pressure. It's just, it is really, really friendly. The team's awesome. Everyone's nice to each other. We all sort of help each other out when we can. The biggest difference is obviously it all helps with the finances. Everything, like from the tablets for the energy drinks to the oils from Motor X, it all just helps. It saves it anywhere where we can save £1 really makes a difference.
Great.
And obviously you're extremely generous and kind, so you've helped us out massively.
Yeah.
And it just makes it all more affordable and means that we're able to do, like this year we're doing 3 championships because we're signed up to all 3.
Yeah.
And I can just pick and choose what I want to do, which just basically means that I've got all the opportunities I could hope for.
I understand your dad was a great motocross rider, so tell me more about him. Fill us in.
Yeah, so obviously when I was younger, my dad was racing a lot. When I started to get a bit, racing nationals and stuff, he wasn't able to keep racing because it's hard enough with one rider doing the nationals, let alone him trying to race, and me and my brother. So he had to give up his career, so I don't really remember too much about it because I was quite young. But what I do know about him was that he certainly was good. I think he started when he was about 13, just racing for fun, just purely doing it for enjoyment, and then sort of stopped around in his 20s.
Okay.
And then sort of when he got back to it, he wasn't able to take it too seriously because obviously he'd missed his prime. But it didn't stop him from still being a good rider. And I certainly know that he did a lot of the NGR stuff, which is the over 35s.
Okay.
And eventually he got kicked out of it. And they reckoned that it was too fast for it because he'd always be sort of doing really, really well.
Yeah.
So we got thrown back into the Eastern Centre racing against the experts, which is, like I said, which is where he was able to pick up his pro points, or his expert points.
Yeah.
Which then allowed him to be in the situations where he was racing against a lot of the top up-and-coming youngsters. But he also raced a lot of PGMC.
Okay.
Again, because when I started, he was still trying to race.
Yeah.
So he'd have to try and do a lot of the local rounds so both me and my brother could race with him.
Okay.
And there was a lot of funny moments growing up. Obviously, I always used to be there to support him even before I was racing. But, when me and my brother were racing, I know there was certainly some moments where once at Chatteris, he hit a pole. They used to have wooden poles in the ground.
Okay.
He hit a pole with his little finger. Ended up dislocating it. But because my brother and me were racing in the next race on the autos, I think he always used to tell us that the paramedics would be chasing him around whilst he was trying to pull his finger in so he could come and watch me and my brother race. So there's loads of moments growing up where I can sort of look back and remember my dad racing, and it all sort of makes the memories for the future. So
and great fond memories of a family unit.
Yeah.
Because your mum was always there, I can guarantee it.
Yeah, my mum. I don't think my mum really misses any racing. The only time she does is if my brother's racing at the same time I am. Obviously, my parents don't want any of us riding alone.
No.
Just in case anything happens. Yeah. But my mum's always there when she can be, watching me race, and when obviously we were younger, watching my dad race.
Yeah.
Even watching my brother race, she's always there. So, they're a big part of of my sort of
Yeah.
side of the sport. They've always been there, always are there,
Yeah.
and they've helped me out massively with giving me these opportunities to race. Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you very much, Callum, for coming over to our new podcast studio, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Pleasure for having me.
Thank you.